Please, help me. I can't breathe. Marcus staggered into a narrow alley just off Decatur Street, one hand clutching his chest, the other searching his coat pocket in vain. The inhaler was gone, his lungs seized with panic. He stumbled forward, bumping into a young man in a hoodie. "Hey," the man barked, brushing him off. "Watch it, old man." Marcus gasped, but the man didn't look back. A couple walked past next, eyes meeting Marcus's briefly before veering away. A jogger veered around him without slowing. A dog barked from across the street. No one stopped. No one helped. He collapsed to his knees beside a dumpster. That's when Maya saw him. She'd been looking for bottles behind the food stalls, anything she could trade for a few coins. But when she heard the wheezing, the barely audible plea for help, she turned and froze. There, in the shadow of the alley, lay a white man in a suit, his face pale, his body curling inward like he was trying to disappear. Maya's breath caught. For a second, she wanted to run. Grandma always told her not to get involved. But something in her chest tugged. Maybe it was the sound, or the way he reached toward her blindly. She took a step closer, then another. "Sir?" she asked, voice trembling. "Are you sick?" Marcus couldn't answer. His lips were blue, his hands twitching. Maya dropped beside him, scanning quickly. His breaths were short, gasping, just like Grandma's when her lungs closed up. She patted his pockets. No inhaler. Panic surged in her tiny chest. She reached into her coat and pulled out a worn coin pouch. Inside, a single crumpled $5 bill, what she and Grandma had been saving for milk this week. She looked down at Marcus again. Then she turned and ran. If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from and what part stayed with you. Like the video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that matter. She darted down Chartres Street, dodging people, gripping the money so tight it nearly tore. The neon cross of Ruth's pharmacy blinked ahead. Inside, a man with a bald head and thick glasses stood behind the counter, counting bills. Maya rushed to him. "Sir, please, I need an inhaler." "A man, he can't breathe." The pharmacist scowled. "What the hell? Where are your parents?" "Please, he's in an alley. He's dying. I have $5. "Do I look like a charity?" he snapped. "Rescue inhalers cost more than that, kid. Get out of here before I call someone." Maya's lips trembled. "Please," she whispered. "Just one, please." The man sighed heavily, looking at her torn coat, her soaked shoes. "Damn it," he muttered. He reached under the counter and grabbed a generic inhaler. "This is all you're getting, and I'm keeping the $5. She nodded quickly, handing him the bill. He snatched it, then grunted. "What alley?" "Off Decatur, near the blue dumpster." He picked up the phone. "Go. I'll call 911. Maya didn't wait. She was already running, feet flying over puddles and broken concrete, chest burning with each breath. When she reached the alley, Marcus was slumped sideways now, face toward the wall. "I'm here," she cried, skidding to his side. "It's okay. I got it." She uncapped the inhaler and knelt beside him, gently prying his mouth open. He was barely conscious. She pressed once. Twice. His chest twitched, then rose. A breath. Then another. Marcus's eyes opened slightly. He blinked, confused, staring at the tiny face hovering above him. "Thank you," he managed. But when the sirens echoed nearby, Maya was already backing away. And before they turned the corner, she was gone. From behind a stack of crates, Maya watched as two paramedics lifted Marcus onto a stretcher. "BP stabilizing," one said. "Lucky break. Whoever gave him the inhaler might have saved his life." Dispatch said a kid called it in. "No ID, just a hang-up." Maya wrapped her arms around herself, heart pounding. Then she turned and walked back home. Above the pawn shop, Grandma was still asleep in her recliner. The oxygen machine hummed beside her. The little apartment smelled like old soup and menthol. Maya crept in quietly, hid the now empty coin pouch under her pillow, and curled up beside Grandma. She didn't say a word. She just lay still, listening to the machine breathe for the old woman she loved, the woman who taught her never to expect help from strangers. And yet today, she had been the one to help. At Mercy Hospital, Marcus opened his eyes under sterile white lights. Machines beeped softly. The weight in his chest had lifted, barely. Jeremy sat beside him. You had a bad attack, he said. They found you in an alley. Marcus turned his head. A girl, he croaked. She helped me. Jeremy frowned. What girl? 6. Black. Tiny. She had an inhaler. She saved me. No one saw her, sir. She was there, Marcus said firmly. She's the reason I'm alive. Jeremy looked unsure but nodded. I'll look into it. Marcus turned away. In his hand, he clutched the pink inhaler. No label, no name. Just a butterfly sticker faded, but still holding on. Like someone who never gave up, Maya didn't sleep that night. Even as the apartment dimmed into silence and the city's muffled chaos slipped into dreams, her eyes remained open. She stared at the ceiling, heart thudding like a second hand on an old clock. The image of the man gasping for breath, his trembling hands, his pale face, it wouldn't leave her. She'd saved him, but she'd also used the last $5 they had. And worse, she knew what would happen if someone figured out who she was. She turned toward her grandmother, curled in the recliner, the oxygen tube looped across her cheeks. The soft hum of the machine was comforting. Maya crawled out of bed quietly and reached under her pillow, checking the little coin pouch. Empty, of course. She closed her fingers around the worn fabric anyway and held it tight. At breakfast, there was no milk, just toast and a little jam from the church pantry. Grandma didn't ask why. Maya, she said gently, voice husky with age and illness. You feelin' all right today, baby? Maya nodded and forced a smile. Grandma squinted at her. You look like you seen a ghost. No, ma'am, Maya said softly. Well, the old woman muttered, coughing into her sleeve. If ghosts come knocking, you better just tell 'em to go find someone richer. Maya cracked a small smile. Grandma always found a way to make her laugh, even on days when things were heavy. After breakfast, they walked to the church pantry together. The streets buzzed more than usual. At the soup line, people murmured about a man who'd nearly died downtown. Fancy suit, big-time businessman, almost keeled over near Jackson Square, someone said. Heard a kid saved him. Maya froze. Her fingers tightened around the sleeve of her grandmother's coat. They said the kid disappeared before anyone got their name, the man added. Like an angel or something. An ange. Maya looked down at her worn boots. One of the laces was missing. Her coat sleeves were too short. She didn't feel like an angel. She felt like a scared little girl who'd broken the rules. At the market across the street, a small television above the counter played the morning news. A headline scrolled across the screen. Billionaire Marcus Coleman rescued from near-fatal asthma attack. A blurry image of Marcus being loaded into an ambulance filled the screen. Maya's stomach turned. They knew who he was now. It wouldn't be long before people started asking who saved him. She tugged on Grandma's hand. Can we go home? Grandma gave her a tired look but nodded. Back in the apartment, Maya sat by the window, watching cars crawl by like ants under the winter sky. Her reflection in the glass looked different now. Was this what heroes looked like? Scared and hiding? She didn't feel brave. She felt watched. Down the block, the corner store owner, Mr. Ray, was putting up a new sign. Help wanted, cashier, evenings. Maya's mind wandered. If she were older, she could work. Maybe then she wouldn't have to steal Grandma's last $5. The knock on the door startled her. Grandma wheezed as she got up to answer it. On the other side stood Miss Lillian, a church volunteer with gray curls and kind eyes. I brought y'all a care package, she said cheerfully, handing over a bag of groceries. Some oatmeal, oranges, and a little surprise. Maya peeked inside. There, nestled among the items, was a small bottle of chocolate milk. Her eyes welled with tears. Miss Lillian looked at her, surprised. Everything okay, honey? Maya nodded quickly and ran to her room. In the hospital, Marcus Coleman sat upright, watching the news segment replay for the third time. He'd refused sedation. His mind was sharp and restless. Jeremy stood at the foot of the bed, arms crossed. No one came forward, still no ID on the girl. She was real, Marcus said firmly. I know, Jeremy replied. We checked local security footage. Most cameras missed the alley. There's one blurry shot of a kid running, but it's too grainy to confirm. Marcus looked down at the inhaler still on the bedside table. Pink. Decorated with a fading butterfly sticker. He picked it up, turning it slowly in his fingers. I owe her, he said. Jeremy hesitated. You owe a lot of people, Marcus. No, Marcus said more quietly. I mean it, that girl. She gave up something to help me, and nobody else did. Not a soul. Jeremy shifted uncomfortably. What do you want to do? Marcus stared out the window. Find her. Jeremy frowned. We don't even have a name. Then we start where it happened, Marcus said. The alley. Ask around. Post flyers. Quietly. No media circus. Jeremy sighed. You're serious. I have money, don't I? Marcus replied with a trace of a smile. Time to use it for something that matters. Back in her room, Maya sat on her bed, holding the chocolate milk like a treasure. She didn't open it yet. She just stared at it, remembering the look on the pharmacist's face, the sound of Marcus wheezing, the blur of flashing lights as she slipped away. She wasn't sure what would happen next, but she knew one thing for certain. She didn't want anyone to know it was her. Not yet, because heroes, she figured, didn't always get statues. Sometimes, they just wanted to be left alone. Marcus didn't sleep that night either. The hospital lights were dimmed, and the machines hummed their familiar lullabies. But his mind stayed sharp, restless. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her, the little girl with wide, alert eyes and trembling hands that didn't hesitate. He had faced death before on hiking trips gone wrong, flights with sudden engine failures, once even during a violent robbery when he was younger and cockier. But this time was different. This time, it wasn't fate or luck that saved him. It was her, a child, no more than 6 or 7, and she had vanished without a name. The morning sun barely crept through the blinds when Jeremy walked in, coffee in hand and a tablet under his arm. I sent someone to check pharmacy records, he began. But most over-the-counter sales aren't tracked. No prescription, no ID, dead end. Marcus took the coffee silently and sipped. He looked older than usual, more human. His hands trembled slightly, not from weakness, but from a strange cocktail of frustration and awe. What about the alley? Marcus asked. Jeremy nodded. I went myself early this morning. Talked to the bakery owner, the food truck vendor, the buskers. No one saw her clearly. One guy remembered seeing a little girl with a pink coat running like hell, but that's all we've got. Marcus leaned back against the pillows. She's not invisible. No, Jeremy said, sitting down. She's just used to not being seen. That struck a chord. For a long time, Marcus had prided himself on seeing everything: market trends, deal weaknesses, opportunities hiding in plain sight. But he had missed people like her, kids living in silence, in the cracks of the city. We'll find her, Jeremy said again, softer this time. Marcus nodded, but said nothing. Later that day, against his doctor's orders, he signed a release form. He wasn't one for laying around while answers drifted out of reach. By the afternoon, he was dressed and wheeled into his black SUV, a private driver waiting. Jeremy sat beside him with a stack of maps and notes. Where to first? The driver asked. Jackson Square, Marcus replied. We walk from there. They visited the alley again. It looked smaller in the daylight, less ominous, more forgotten. Marcus stood quietly, staring at the ground where he'd nearly died. She ran this way, he said, pointing toward the narrow path leading toward the drugstore. They followed it. The sidewalk was cracked, uneven. Garbage bins lined the walls. A few homeless men nodded as they passed. At Ruth's pharmacy, the same balding pharmacist from the night before was behind the counter. He looked up as they entered, clearly recognizing Marcus from the news. Well, I'll be, he muttered. You're the guy from the television. Marcus ignored the comment. A little girl came in here last night, around 6 or 7. Small, pink coat, tried to buy an inhaler. The man stiffened. Yeah, I remember her. Jeremy stepped forward. We're not here to make trouble. We just want to find her. The pharmacist scratched his head. She was desperate. Had $5. Not enough, but something about her. I gave her the inhaler anyway. Did she say her name? Marcus asked. Nope, just ran off after I called 911. Which direction? The man pointed, back toward the church blocks. As they left, Marcus stared down the direction the pharmacist indicated. She's nearby, he said quietly. Back in her apartment, Maya sat cross-legged on the floor, drawing on a torn piece of cardboard. The butterfly sticker on her replacement coin pouch, a gift from Miss Lillian, looked just like the one on the inhaler she'd left behind. Grandma was dozing. Maya didn't want to wake her. She kept drawing butterflies, big ones, small ones, some flying, some still. Each time her crayon scratched the paper, her mind wandered. Did the man live? Had the medicine worked? Would someone come looking? She hoped not. But deep down, she kind of wished he was okay. At the community church, Miss Lillian sat in the office, organizing donation forms when she heard a knock. "Come in," she called. Marcus stepped through the door, hat in hand, Jeremy just behind him. "I'm sorry to bother you, ma'am," Marcus said. "I'm looking for a little girl. I think she might come here." Miss Lillian looked them both over. "You the man she saved?" "I am." The older woman nodded slowly. "She didn't give you her name?" "She disappeared before the ambulance came." Miss Lillian stood, thoughtful. "We don't give out names. Most kids here don't want to be found." "She saved my life," Marcus said softly. "I just want to thank her, and make sure she's okay." Miss Lillian studied him. Not the billionaire, not the businessman, just the man. "She has someone?" she asked. "Her grandmother, I think. That's all we know." Miss Lillian sighed. "I'll ask around. No promises." Marcus handed her a card. "No press, no announcements. Just tell her she has nothing to be afraid of." She nodded and tucked the card away. That night, Miss Lillian stood at the pantry, handing out food. Maya came by, hood up, head down. "Chocolate milk again tomorrow if you're good," Miss Lillian said. Maya smiled faintly. Then Miss Lillian bent slightly, lowering her voice. "The man you helped? He came by, said thank you." Maya's eyes shot up. "Did he see me?" she whispered. "Number just wanted to know you were safe. That's all." Maya said nothing. She walked home slowly, hand inside her coat, fingers tracing the shape of the butterfly sticker again. Maybe he really was okay. Maybe she didn't have to disappear forever. Not yet. The air had grown colder overnight. Frost nipped the corners of the window pane as Maya sat on the fire escape outside her apartment, her knees drawn up to her chest, breath forming tiny clouds. She held the butterfly pouch in her hands, the sticker worn but still clinging on. Each morning, she traced its edges with her finger like a prayer, not knowing what exactly she was asking for. Down the street, the city was stirring. Vendors were setting up stalls. Buses screeched to a halt at the corner, and a man with a saxophone played softly to no one in particular. But inside Maya's chest, a strange stillness had taken root, half fear, half wonder. She hadn't told Grandma about the man, not the alley, not the pharmacist, not the sirens. Grandma had enough to worry about. Still, Maya felt a quiet pressure building inside her, like something waiting to be said but held in place by fear of what it might mean. That morning, Grandma noticed. "You're quiet lately," she said as she struggled to button her sweater. "Even more than usual." Maya shrugged, eyes on the floor. "You didn't do anything wrong, did you?" Maya shook her head. Grandma gave her a look, the kind that said she saw more than Maya wished she did. "You got a good heart, baby, but good hearts still gotta be careful. You understand?" Maya nodded, but she wasn't sure she did. Not really. Later that day, at the church pantry, Miss Lillian called Maya over while she was helping hand out apples. She leaned in close, voice gentle. "He's back again, the man." Maya's hand froze mid-reach. "He's asking around quiet-like. No cameras, no reporters, just him." Maya's chest tightened. "He's still looking for me? He said he owes you his life. Just wants to say thank you." Maya didn't reply. Miss Lillian knelt slightly, her eyes warm but firm. "Honey, people like that, men with money, they come and go in this world. But this one, I don't know. There's something in his eyes, like he's different now. Softer." Maya frowned. "He won't tell nobody?" "He promised he wouldn't. Not even the police?" "No police. Just a man trying to say thank you." Maya's voice was barely a whisper. "I don't want him to be mad at me." Miss Lillian smiled sadly. "Child, you saved his life. That kind of debt don't come with anger." That same afternoon, Marcus stood outside the church gate, coat collar turned up against the wind. He wasn't used to waiting. Not for people, not for meetings, not for anything. But today, he waited. No chauffeur, no suit, just a wool sweater and a coffee slowly growing cold in his hands. When Miss Lillian stepped out, She gave him a slow nod. She might come, she said. No promises. Marcus nodded, eyes scanning the street. Why her? Miss Lillian asked quietly. You've got people, doctors, staff. Why spend days looking for a girl you never even knew? Marcus looked at her, the weight in his eyes deeper than weariness. Because when I was dying, and everyone else turned away, she didn't. Miss Lillian studied him, then smiled softly. You remember that. I will, he said simply. An hour later, as the sun began to dip behind the buildings, Maya stood across the street behind a row of parked cars. Her heart was beating too fast. Her hands trembled. She had no idea what she would say, what he would say, or if maybe this was a trap and Grandma had been right all along. But she had to know. She took a step forward, then another. Marcus didn't see her at first. He was looking down, distracted, rubbing his hands together. Then he looked up and saw her. She froze. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Marcus took a step forward, slow and cautious, like approaching a wild animal afraid of sudden movement. You came, he said, voice gentle. Maya didn't speak. I was hoping I'd get to see you again, he continued. I wanted to say thank you. Maya looked down at her shoes. I know you didn't do it for attention, he added, and I'm not here to make a scene. Just to let you know I'm okay, because of you. She glanced up. Are you mad? She asked, barely audible. He shook his head. No, sweetheart. Not even close. I'm grateful. She blinked, uncertain. You looked like you were gonna die. I felt like I was, he said, smiling slightly. But you didn't run away. Not right away, at least. I did run. But not before saving me. Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out the butterfly pouch. She held it up. That was the last money we had. Marcus's smile faded into something deeper, sadness, perhaps. Guilt. I'll make sure you and your grandma don't have to worry like that again, he said. Maya took a step back, defensive. You're not going to take me away, are you? He shook his head quickly. I promise. I won't do anything you don't want. I just want to help. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay. Marcus smiled. The kind of smile that comes not from charm, but from relief. Can I ask your name? Maya. That's a beautiful name. She shrugged. Well, Maya, he said softly, you saved my life, and I don't think I'll ever forget the butterfly on your pouch. She glanced down at it, then up at him again. You gonna disappear now? Marcus hesitated. Not unless you want me to. She thought about it. You can stay. For now. He grinned. Then I'll be around. They stood there, quiet and still, in the heart of a city that never stopped moving. A girl. A man. A promise hanging in the cold air between them. And somewhere above, the last light of day caught the edge of a peeling sticker shaped like a butterfly. And for once, it looked like it might fly. That night, Maya sat by the window with her chin resting on the windowsill, watching the street lamp flicker just outside the pawn shop. She hadn't told Grandma what happened, not yet. A part of her still didn't know how. How do you tell someone you met the man you saved, and that he remembered you? That he said your name like it meant something? That he didn't try to fix you, just stayed? She stared down at her butterfly pouch resting on the table beside her, the sticker still clinging to it like a small, determined secret. In a world full of grown-ups too busy to notice, it had somehow become a symbol of that moment in the alley, of her choice, of him. Grandma was asleep again, her breathing steady but shallow, the familiar wheeze slipping in and out of rhythm. Maya tiptoed to the recliner and adjusted the blanket around her shoulders. She leaned in close. I met him, she whispered. He remembered me. Then, without meaning to, she added, he said my name. The apartment creaked, the radiator hissed, and Maya stood there for a moment longer before crawling into bed, her thoughts tangled like the loose threads in her blanket. Across town, Marcus sat at the edge of a hotel bed he hadn't planned on sleeping in. The suite overlooked the French Quarter, but he barely noticed the view. On the table beside him sat his phone, a business card he no longer used, and the pink inhaler with the faded butterfly sticker. He'd held on to it. He wasn't sure why. Maybe because in all his years chasing deals, influence, and accolades, it was the only thing someone had ever given him that came with no agenda. Just a small plastic lifeline from someone who had nothing else to give. He turned the card over in his fingers again. Then, quietly, he picked up the phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in months. Jeremy, he said when the voice answered. I need you to come to New Orleans. Tomorrow, we're setting something up. The next morning, Maya and Grandma were finishing breakfast when a knock came at the door. 3 knocks. Slow, measured. Grandma looked up, startled. You expecting someone? Maya shook her head quickly. Her grandmother wheezed as she stood and shuffled toward the door, pausing only to glance through the peephole. It's a white man, she said under her breath. Fancy coat, got a clean face like he just walked out of a bank. Maya's heart leapt. Grandma turned to her. You know him? Maya hesitated, then nodded. Grandma narrowed her eyes. How? I saved him, Maya said quietly. He was sick, couldn't breathe. Grandma blinked. You what? I used the milk money, Maya admitted. I bought him an inhaler. He almost died. Grandma stared at her, unsure whether to be proud or terrified. And now he's at our door? He said he just wanted to help. With a sigh, Grandma opened the door. Marcus stood there, holding a paper bag and wearing a soft smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Behind him stood Jeremy, holding what looked like a folder under one arm. Good morning, Marcus said gently. I hope I'm not intruding. Grandma looked him up and down. You the man my granddaughter saved? I am, Marcus replied. And I'd like to return the kindness, if I can. He handed her the bag. Inside were groceries, fresh fruit, cartons of milk, eggs, even a few pastries wrapped in wax paper. I wasn't sure what you needed, he added, so I started with breakfast. Grandma eyed him suspiciously. You're not with the government, are you? Marcus chuckled. No, ma'am. She stepped aside. Come in then. Maya stayed near the corner, arms folded, watching him closely. Marcus didn't rush to her. He gave her space. Instead, he walked to the little table and sat down, placing the inhaler gently beside the butterfly pouch. I think this belongs to you, he said. Maya didn't answer. I kept it, he added, because I didn't want to forget, not just the moment, but what it meant. Jeremy stepped forward and handed Grandma the folder. Inside is something Mr. Coleman wants to offer you. Quietly, no publicity, no press. Grandma opened it slowly, her eyes widened. A bank account, prepaid rent, medical care options, an offer for groceries and utilities covered for the next 6 months. This is a lot, Grandma said slowly. It's not charity, Marcus replied. It's gratitude. And what do you want in return? She asked, voice sharp. Nothing, he said honestly, except to keep my promise, to not forget the girl who saved me. He turned back to Maya. I'd like to come by now and then. Maybe bring you some books or puzzles or... I like butterflies, Maya blurted out before she could stop herself. Marcus smiled. Then I'll bring butterflies. Grandma studied him for a long moment, then nodded once. We don't owe you anything. You understand that? I do. All right, she said. You can come back, but no suits, and don't talk like a banker. Marcus chuckled. Deal. As they walked to the door, Jeremy looked around the apartment, 2 rooms, peeling paint, a second-hand television held together by tape. She saved your life, he murmured to Marcus as they stepped outside. Marcus nodded. She might have just changed it too. The following week, the knock on the door came every morning at the same time, 8 a.m., sharp. At first, Grandma would grunt from her recliner and mutter, that man don't sleep in, but she never told him to stop coming. She never told Maya to keep away, either. Marcus arrived without fanfare. No driver, no fancy coat, just a canvas bag over his shoulder and a tired but warm smile on his face. The first time, he brought a small butterfly journal from Maya, hand-drawn pages, thick with colors, delicate wings captured mid-flight. I saw this at a little shop near the park, he said, handing it to her. Thought of you. Maya took it silently but couldn't stop flipping through the pages, tracing the outlines with her fingertip like she had with the sticker on her pouch. The next day, he brought pastries and a jigsaw puzzle. The day after that, he came with a children's book about migration patterns of monarchs. Every day, it was something small, quiet, thoughtful. He didn't ask questions. He didn't try to pry into their lives. He just showed up. Saturday at the little table with Maya while Grandma dozed, asked about her drawings, watched her piece together the puzzle slowly, deliberately, laughed when she made up butterfly names on the spot. This one's a moon sniffer, she said one morning, pointing to a butterfly with silvery wings. A moon sniffer? he repeated, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, they only come out when the moon is full and smell it for dreams. Well, Marcus said, that's a much better name than Monarch. She gave him a tiny smile. Over time, the silence between them softened. Not gone, but easier, comfortable. Maya began asking him questions in return. Do you have kids? Number. Why not? Marcus posed. Life moved too fast for too long. I kept saying someday, and then I blinked and someday was gone. Do you have parents? My father died when I was a teenager. My mother passed a few years ago. It's just me now. Maya thought about that. You must be lonely. He looked at her, surprised by the bluntness. But then he nodded. I think I was. Not anymore, though. The next morning, he brought an envelope. I've been thinking, he said, placing it gently on the table, about what happens after I leave. You and your grandma shouldn't have to wait for help again. Inside were forms, simple ones. Not legal jargon or contracts, just a school application, a new housing voucher, a healthcare enrollment form, each with highlighted lines where signatures were needed. I know this looks like a lot, Marcus said, but I spoke to someone at the district. They have a program for kids like you, smart, under-supported, living with family. If you're willing, you can attend part-time, keep your current routine. They'll even send someone to help your grandma during the day. Maya stared at the forms, then at him. What do I have to do? Just be Maya, he said. And maybe, let yourself grow. She didn't answer immediately. Her fingers hovered over the paper. It's okay if you need time, he added. Maya shook her head. I want to help Grandma, but I want to learn, too, Marcus exhaled. Then let's make that happen. That evening, he didn't leave right away. He stayed through supper, simple soup and cornbread, and listened as Grandma told stories about when she was young, when the music on Bourbon Street made the windows tremble. You ever dance? Marcus asked her. Lord, boy, I owned the floor, Grandma said, smiling wide. Back when my knees weren't traitors. They all laughed. And for a moment, the peeling walls and broken heater didn't seem so important. Before he left, Marcus stood in the doorway and looked back. You've both given me more than I ever expected, he said. Grandma waved a hand. You just needed someone to knock you off your high horse. I needed someone to see me, he replied. Maya followed him out to the sidewalk. You won't disappear, will you? He turned to her, kneeling to meet her eyes. Not unless you ask me to. She hesitated, then reached into her pocket and handed him a folded drawing, a new butterfly she'd created. This one's for you. He's called a second chance. He only shows up once in a lifetime. Marcus unfolded it carefully. The wings were mismatched, one bright and one dim, like it had flown through something terrible and come out changed. It's beautiful, he whispered. Maya nodded. Don't lose him. I won't, he said, voice thick. I promise. As he walked down the block, Maya stood still, the wind tugging at her coat. Behind her, the apartment glowed with a warm light. Ahead of her, the city bustled like it always had. But for the first time, she didn't feel small in it. She felt seen. And in her heart, a flutter of wings told her something had begun, something that couldn't be undone. The following days brought changes Maya had never dared to imagine. A social worker, named Mrs. Ellison, who wore oversized glasses and carried a folder thicker than her arm, came by to assess their living situation. She spoke kindly to Grandma, asked questions Maya didn't quite understand, and took notes on a clipboard that clicked with every scribble. It made Maya nervous. She's just here to help, Marcus had told her. She's not here to take anything away. Still, Maya clung to her butterfly pouch the entire time, like a secret shield. Mrs. Ellison returned the next day, smiling wider. We're moving forward with housing assistance, she said. You'll be eligible for a unit 2 blocks away, on the first floor. Better heat, better plumbing, and there's a small park nearby. Grandma raised an eyebrow. And the catch? No catch, the woman said. Just a better place for you both to breathe. When she left, Grandma sank into her chair and stared out the window for a long time. Maya sat beside her, silent. Your butterfly man's stirring up a lot of dust, Grandma finally said. Maya didn't know if that was good or bad. That afternoon, Marcus returned with a book tucked under his arm. He sat down at the small table with Maya and pulled it out a children's encyclopedia of insects. Inside were detailed drawings, glossy pages, and hundreds of facts. Maya flipped to the butterfly section first. Did you know some butterflies fake being poisonous even when they're not? I didn't, Marcus said. They do it so predators won't mess with them. It's kind of like putting on armor. He nodded. Smart. Fake it till you make it, huh? She giggled. But later that evening, something shifted. As Marcus stood to leave, Grandma motioned for him to stay back a moment. Maya had gone to wash up. The kitchen light flickered, casting a strange warmth on her lined face. I need to ask you something, Grandma said, her voice low and serious. Of course. Why are you doing this? He blinked. Because she saved my life. I know, she said. But rich men don't just walk into poor homes and start caring without reason. What is it, really? Marcus hesitated. Then he sat back down, shoulders heavy. When she helped me that day, I wasn't just gasping for air, I was drowning in my own life. The money, the noise, the people who wanted pieces of me, it all became noise. But she, that little girl in the alley, didn't want anything. She just saw someone hurting and chose to act. Grandma's eyes softened slightly, but her voice stayed firm. You see her as a symbol. No, Marcus said. I see her as a person, one with more strength than most CEOs I've met. I'm not here to save her. I'm just answering back. I want to be a steady presence. If she'll let me. Grandma nodded slowly. All right, then, but no swooping in. No white knight nonsense. Let her walk her own road. He smiled. Understood. The next morning brought something new, an envelope, slipped under their door in the early hours. Maya opened it carefully. Inside was a flyer, her own drawing, the second chance butterfly. Someone had scanned it, cleaned up the edges, and printed it in full color on bright cardstock. Beneath the image was a single sentence. A girl with wings saved a man with none. There was no name, no credit, just the picture. She looked up at Grandma, eyes wide. Do you think Marcus? Probably, Grandma said. That man's got time and guilt to burn. At the church that afternoon, Maya saw the flyer pinned to the corkboard near the food pantry. Miss Lillian was folding donation clothes. You see this? Maya asked, pointing. Miss Lillian chuckled. Yeah, saw it this morning. Pretty little thing, isn't it? Maya watched as a boy about her age stood by the board, reading the words out loud under his breath. His eyes lit up. Think she's real? He asked Maya. She nodded slightly. I think she is. He smiled and ran off. For the rest of the day, people talked about the flyer, the girl, the butterfly. She was becoming something more than just a kid with a pink coat. She was becoming hope. That night, Maya sat by the window again, butterfly pouch in her lap, the flyer beside her. The city shimmered in the distance, lights flickering like stars trying to break through. She heard Grandma coughing behind her and went to help, rubbing her back gently. We'll have better air soon, Maya whispered. No more leaky pipes, no more mold. Lord willing, Grandma muttered, half smiling. Then Maya said something she hadn't said in years. Thank you for keeping me safe. Grandma turned to her, surprised. You did the same for that man, she said. Guess we're even. They shared a quiet laugh. The next morning, Marcus didn't come, and he didn't come the day after that, either. On the third day, Maya stood outside on the sidewalk, clutching the drawing of Second Chance, heart pounding with a new kind of fear. Had he changed his mind? Had she done something wrong? She didn't know. But one thing was clear. The man who promised not to disappear was gone. And somewhere deep inside her chest, something delicate started to crack. 3 days without Marcus turned into 4. Then 5. Each morning, Maya sat by the window, her knees pulled tight to her chest, eyes fixed on the corner where he usually appeared, coat collar turned up, canvas bag in hand, that crooked smile like he was just stopping by for a moment, when really he was changing the air around them. But now the sidewalk was just concrete and shadow. The knock on the door never came. At first, she told herself he was busy. Maybe a meeting. Maybe he left town and forgot to say. But by the end of the week, doubt slipped in like a cold draft under the door. She hadn't even gotten to show him her newest butterfly, drawing a deep purple one with wings shaped like cracked glass. She'd called it the disappearing kind. On the 6th day, Grandma noticed the difference. Maya was quieter. Not the usual quiet, but the kind that carried weight, like a storm gathering in the chest. "He's not coming, is he?" Maya asked softly over their plain breakfast of oatmeal and toast. Grandma took a long sip of her tea. "Men like him, they come into our world like they're just passing through. Sometimes, they don't mean to stay. Even if they want to. But he promised," Maya said. Grandma looked at her, eyes full of history. "Even promises break, child. Doesn't mean they were lies when they were made." Later that afternoon, Miss Lillian pulled Maya aside at the church. "He hasn't checked in?" Maya shook her head. Lillian frowned. "Odd. I don't think he's the kind to ghost a girl like that." "What if he got sick again?" Maya whispered. "What if he—" "Let's not jump to shadows," Miss Lillian said gently. "Sometimes life gets loud, but I'll make a few calls, see if anything's off." That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She sat at the kitchen table under the dim bulb, tracing lines on her notebook with a broken crayon, trying to draw the disappearing kind again. But the wings wouldn't come out right. She remembered the alley, the way he'd crumpled, the way no one helped. She'd run then, too, thinking it was the end. Now he was the one who'd vanished. The next day, just after lunch, a knock came, not at the apartment door, but at the back alley door of the church pantry. Miss Lillian answered it. Outside stood a man Maya didn't recognize. He wore a dark coat and held a sleek leather folder. "Delivery for Miss Maya William," he said. Lillian narrowed her eyes. "And you are?" "Messenger, hired privately, was told to deliver this by hand." Lillian hesitated, then took the envelope and watched the man leave without another word. She walked back inside, closed the pantry door, and found Maya stacking cans. "This came for you." Maya stared at the envelope. Her name was handwritten in a tight, slanted scrawl. No return address, no logo. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a letter. "Maya, I'm sorry I disappeared. Something happened. Something I didn't expect. My company, the one I built before I ever met you, was under investigation quietly. Old deals, bad partners. Nothing I did, but enough to drag my name through the mud if it came out. I had to step away, immediately, or everything I'd promised you and your grandma would vanish with me. I wanted to tell you, but my lawyer insisted silence was safest until things settled. It wasn't my choice, but I honored it. I've missed our mornings. Your butterflies, your strength. You are more than a girl who saved a life. You are someone who changes lives by simply being present. Enclosed is something I hope brings you peace until I return. And I will return. Marcus." Maya pulled out the second paper. It was a certificate official, with a gold seal and her name typed clearly at the top. A scholarship award for Maya William. Full tuition coverage for early education, art supplies, private mentorship in drawing and science, and guaranteed entrance into the local after-school enrichment program. Grandma looked over her shoulder. "He didn't forget." "No," Maya whispered. "He didn't." Later that week, a box arrived. Inside was a framed print of her butterfly, Second Chance, printed professionally, signed in the corner by a local artist she admired from the library books. There was also a soft leather sketchbook, her name engraved in gold, and a tiny charm, shaped like a butterfly, attached to a silver chain. Maya wore it under her coat, tucked close to her heart. A month passed, then another. Maya grew used to the rhythm of school again, of new books, of hot lunches that didn't come from a pantry line. She still visited the church, still helped Grandma with her medicine and laundry. Life didn't suddenly turn into a fairy tale, but it was steadier, warmer, and every time she looked down at the butterfly around her neck, she remembered. He kept his word. Even from far away, Marcus hadn't disappeared. He'd just become part of her world in a quieter way. One morning, as spring teased the city with sunlight and soft winds, Maya stood outside her new school, waiting for the bus. A sleek black car pulled up beside her. The window rolled down, and there he was. Tired eyes, thinner than she remembered, but smiling. "Hey kid," Marcus said. Maya blinked. "You're real. Told you I'd be back." She stared at him, then stepped forward, slow at first, then faster, wrapping her arms around his waist before she could stop herself. "I thought you were gone forever." "I thought I was too," he said, his voice thick. "But you kept me going." She stepped back, blinking up at him. Where have you been? Fighting. For truth, for my name, but mostly for my promise to you. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a tiny piece of paper. A new butterfly. This one's yours, he said. I call it homecoming. The day Marcus returned marked a quiet shift in Maya's life, like the moment just before sunrise when everything holds its breath. The city hadn't changed. The streets still pulsed with noise and haste. But Maya saw things differently now. There was weight in every promise, color in every crack of pavement, and the hush of hope lingering in every breeze. Marcus didn't sweep in with grandeur. He didn't make speeches or carry big gifts. He simply became present again. He walked Maya to school when he could, helped Grandma fix a leaking faucet, Saturday at the church pantry folding clothes like any other volunteer. And slowly, the trust that had fractured in his absence mended. Thread by thread. One afternoon, Marcus arrived holding 2 paper cups of hot cocoa and a folder. Big day, he said, handing Maya a cup. We've got options? Maya looked at the folder warily. What kind of options? He opened it on the little table in their new apartment. A space not grand but warm, with steady heat, working plumbing, and a window view of the tiny park across the street. Inside the folder were brochures for youth mentorship programs, science clubs, art workshops, even a summer leadership retreat. All of these, Marcus said, tapping the papers, are part of the scholarship fund. You don't have to pick now, but we'll plan ahead. Maya's eyes flicked from one flyer to another. Each one was filled with smiling faces, classrooms, hands raised mid-question. For the first time, her place in those images didn't feel impossible. What if I don't fit in? She asked quietly. Marcus looked her in the eye. Then we'll make a space that fits you. He reached into his pocket and pulled out something new, a butterfly-shaped pin, small but intricate, crafted from enamel and brushed brass. It gleamed softly in the lamplight. This, he said, was made by a local jeweler. I showed her your sketches. She turned them into something solid, something you can carry. Maya took the pin gently. It's beautiful. It's yours. Wear it when you're nervous. Let it remind you who you are. She fastened it to her jacket carefully, like pinning a piece of courage to her chest. As spring warmed into early summer, Maya blossomed in ways no one expected. She joined a weekend art class, where she drew silent portraits of the city. She volunteered at the community garden near the church, learning how to grow peppers and basil and sunflowers that reached for the sky. She even gave a short talk at her after-school program about butterflies and survival. A soft, stuttering speech that still made 3 of the volunteers tear up. At home, Grandma's health had stabilized. With the help of the housing program, she now had regular access to medication, checkups, and a nurse who visited twice a week. The weight on Maya's shoulders began to ease. But just as peace settled in, a letter arrived. It was addressed to Marcus, but delivered to Maya's apartment. The envelope was thick, the seal corporate and cold. Inside were legal documents, summons, allegations, claims of misconduct. Maya didn't understand all of it, but the words, pending litigation and breach of fiduciary duty, stood out in bold. She found Marcus at the community center, painting sets for a children's play. They found me, he said, glancing at the letter with a tired sigh. I knew they would eventually. Maya's face tightened. You're in trouble? Not the kind I can't handle, he said. But it means more meetings, possibly court appearances. I may have to leave town for a while again. But you just got back, Maya said, her voice cracking. I know, he said softly, and I'm not disappearing, not this time. He bent down to her eye level, steady and calm. What we built here, your school, your home, your progress, it's protected. I made sure of that. No matter what happens with me, none of this will be taken from you. Maya swallowed hard. They're trying to ruin you. He smiled faintly. They've already tried, but you reminded me what matters, so let them come. He took her hand gently. You've got wings now, Maya. You don't need me to fly. That night, she couldn't sleep. She sat at her window again, pin in hand, butterfly pouch beside her, eyes fixed on the stars beyond the glass. The city shimmered like always, but this time she felt the weight of its silence, and she remembered what Miss Lillian once told her: hope doesn't shout. It whispers. It lingers. It keeps showing up even when no one's watching. The next morning, Maya did something she hadn't done before. She stood in front of her class and asked if she could share a story. About a man who couldn't breathe. About people who turned away. About a little girl who gave her last dollar. And about how that single act changed both their lives. She didn't say Marcus's name. She didn't need to. When she finished, the room was still. And then, one by one, hands began to clap. Later, one of the teachers approached her. "That was brave," he said. "You should think about writing it down." Maya smiled. "I already have." And she had. Page by page in her sketchbook, between butterflies and journal entries, she was building something. A record, a legacy, a reminder that sometimes, the smallest hearts carry the greatest strength. And that even when promises are tested, they can still hold true, especially when built on wings. The courthouse loomed large and cold, its gray stone walls rising like a fortress in the heart of the city. On the morning of Marcus's hearing, a soft drizzle kissed the sidewalks, blurring the edges of traffic lights and car windows. Maya stood across the street, her backpack slung over one shoulder, watching people in suits hurry inside with umbrellas and briefcases. She had never seen a place so silent and loud at the same time. Beside her, Grandma clutched her cane a little tighter. "You sure you want to do this?" she asked. Maya nodded, heart pounding. "He came back for me. I need to be there for him." They entered the courtroom just before the proceedings began. The room smelled like dust and old wood. A judge in a long black robe sat beneath a carved eagle, flanked by flags and brass. Lawyers shuffled papers. Cameras clicked. The air buzzed with restrained tension. Marcus sat at the defendant's table, clean-shaven, still in his navy suit, but different, calmer, grounded. When he saw Maya in the gallery, his face broke into a small, tired smile. He gave a subtle nod. She nodded back, her fingers wrapped around the butterfly pin hidden beneath her jacket. The prosecutor, a man with a voice like a hammer, began the case with fiery language. Fraud, neglect, abuse of position. He painted Marcus as a reckless billionaire blinded by ambition, accusing him of funneling funds, deceiving partners, and walking away with clean hands while others suffered. Maya couldn't recognize the man they were describing. It wasn't the man who brought her books, who fixed their heater, who sat in the pews at church and helped old Miss Lorraine carry groceries without a word. Then Marcus's lawyer stood, calm, direct. She spoke of the truth, the pressure Marcus had faced, the mistakes others made under his name, and the quiet work he'd been doing since stepping down. She handed over binders of documentation, emails, transactions, testimonies. She introduced character witnesses. And then, unexpectedly, she called Maya. Gasps stirred in the courtroom. Maya's breath hitched. "I'm not sure," she whispered. "You don't have to," Grandma said gently. "But if you want to, go show them who you are." Hands trembling, Maya walked down the aisle and stepped into the witness box. Everything looked bigger from there. The judge, the lights, the rows of unfamiliar eyes. "State your name for the record," the clerk said. "Maya William." How do you know Mr. Marcus Coleman?" the defense asked. Maya looked at Marcus. "He almost died," she said. "I found him in an alley, couldn't breathe. People just walked by like he wasn't there. But I stayed. I gave him my last dollar to buy him medicine." Murmurs rose in the room. The judge silenced them with a tap of the gavel. "And what happened after that?" "He came back," Maya said, voice stronger. "He didn't owe me anything, but he came back, every day. He helped us when no one else did. Not because it looked good, not for photos, just because it was right." "Did he ever offer you money or ask you to hide anything?" "No," Maya said firmly. "He just listened and made me feel seen." The prosecutor stood, straightening his tie. "Maya," he said, voice gentler than before. "You're very brave, but are you aware of the financial accusations against Mr. Coleman?" "I know people are trying to blame him for things he didn't do," she replied. "But I also know what it's like to be blamed just because of where you come from, or how you look, or because people don't want to believe someone like you can do the right thing." He paused. "And what makes you so certain he's telling the truth?" Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out her sketchbook. She flipped to a page the butterfly she'd drawn the day Marcus returned. "Because this is the man I know. Not perfect, not powerful, just someone who got a second chance, and used it. The room went quiet. When Maya stepped down, Marcus mouthed the words, "Thank you." She nodded and returned to her seat, heart pounding, chest light. The rest of the hearing blurred by. Legal arguments. Cross-examinations. The gavel struck finally as the judge announced he would deliver a decision within a week. Outside, the drizzle had turned to sunlight. Marcus caught up with them on the courthouse steps. "I didn't know they'd call you," he said softly. "I wanted to speak," Maya replied. "You helped me find my voice." He looked at her for a long moment, then turned to Grandma. "Thank you both. Whatever happens, I'll never forget this." Grandma offered a rare smile. "Just keep showing up. That's what matters." They parted ways, but something had shifted. Maya no longer saw Marcus as the man who owed her gratitude. He was something else now, someone who'd fallen and stood back up, not alone but with help. And she wasn't just the girl who saved him. She was the girl who spoke truth to power and stood her ground. Later that night, she drew a new butterfly. It had strong, jagged wings and bold colors: red, gold, indigo. She called it Testimony. And beneath it, she wrote, "Sometimes, the truth needs a voice small enough to fit in a child's chest but strong enough to shake a courtroom." The week following the hearing passed like slow thunder. At school, Maya sat through classes with one ear always tuned to the hallway, half expecting someone to burst in with news. At home, Grandma kept the television on low, flipping channels between court updates and gospel music, as if waiting for a sign. But no sign came, just the steady tick of days. Marcus didn't visit that week. He had warned them, told them there would be scrutiny, reporters, cameras outside his building. "They'll want a story," he'd said. "They won't care if it's true." So he stayed hidden, out of respect, out of caution. But Maya still felt his absence like an empty seat at the table. Every morning she'd glance at the spot near the window where he used to sip cocoa. Every afternoon she'd catch herself reaching into her backpack, fingertips brushing the butterfly pin for comfort. Then, one Thursday afternoon, the news came not by word, but by broadcast. Grandma had just set a pan of cornbread on the stove when the television anchor paused mid-segment, hand to her earpiece. "This just in," she said. "In a statement released minutes ago, Judge Ellen Rosenthal has ruled in favor of former executive Marcus Coleman. The court found insufficient evidence of direct wrongdoing and confirmed that financial mismanagement occurred without Mr. Coleman's knowledge or participation." Maya froze, the words hanging in the air like dandelion seeds. "He's cleared," Grandma whispered. Maya ran to the door, swung it open, and dashed outside. She didn't know where she was going, only that her legs needed to move, needed to run. Past the tiny park, past the corner store, up the block toward the community center where they used to meet. And there he was. Marcus stood on the steps, phone still in hand, face pale with disbelief. He saw her before she could call his name. He opened his arms. She flew into them. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, he pulled back and looked at her with wet eyes. "We did it." Maya grinned. "No, you did it." He shook his head. "I didn't do it alone." That weekend, the church held a potluck to celebrate. Not for the court case. Officially, no one wanted to stir trouble, but for the new season, the new garden, the new roof someone had donated. Unofficially, though, everyone knew who the night belonged to. Miss Lillian cooked enough fried chicken for 2 blocks. The kids decorated the tables with construction paper butterflies. Even Reverend Porter made a joke during prayer, saying, "Seems the Lord knows good men when he sees them, even when it takes the world a while to catch up." Marcus arrived quietly, late as usual, holding a tray of cornbread and a sheepish smile. Maya stood by the punch bowl, wearing a dress she hadn't worn since Easter. When she saw him, her face lit up like a match struck in the dark. He handed her the tray. "Family recipe," he said. "Kind of." She took it. "Box mix?" "Shh," he said, mock serious. "Don't ruin my reputation." As the evening wore on, something rare happened. People who had once eyed Marcus with suspicion, skeptics from the community, wary elders, came to speak with him. They asked questions, shared stories. One man slapped his shoulder and said, "You're all right, Coleman. Just don't forget where you ate." Marcus didn't flinch, wouldn't dream of it. Later that night, Marcus stood before the gathered crowd. "I'm not a man of speeches," he began. "But I am a man who got lucky twice. Once, when a girl gave me breath. And again, when this community gave me grace. He turned toward Maya. You reminded me that real power isn't in money or influence. It's in compassion, in showing up, in keeping your word. There was a beat of silence, then applause. Back home, Maya added a new page to her sketchbook. This butterfly had silver edges and a golden center. It looked like it had flown through fire and come out shining. She named it Vindication. That night, Marcus called her on the old landline Grandma insisted on keeping. Hey, he said, got a crazy idea. What would you think about starting a foundation? A what? A place to help kids like you, families like yours. A safe space, education, art, maybe even butterfly gardens. I'd fund it, but I'd want you involved. It would carry your name. Maya blinked. My name? It started with you, Marcus said simply. Seems only right. Maya didn't answer immediately. Then she said, only if we name it something real. Something from both of us. He smiled. I'm listening. How about the Second Chance Project? Silence. Then a quiet exhale from the other end. Perfect. And just like that, the next chapter of their story began not in crisis, but in creation. In building something lasting. Something that would outlive both of them. Maya didn't know what the future held. There would be more battles, more broken systems, more people to help. But she knew this. Her name was more than a signature now. It was a banner. A light. And the wings on her chest were no longer just symbols. They were the shape of her becoming. The first meeting for the Second Chance Project was held in the old Sunday school room at the back of the church. The walls were faded yellow, and the chalkboard hadn't been used in years. But the energy inside buzzed like a spring hive. Maya sat at a long folding table with her sketchbook, a few pens, and Marcus beside her, sleeves rolled up, tapping his fingers on the metal edge. Miss Lillian brought lemon cookies. Reverend Porter sat at the end of the table with a clipboard. A few local teachers, volunteers, and community leaders filled the rest of the seats. These weren't executives or polished speakers, just people who had seen too much and still chose to care. Marcus cleared his throat. We're not here to save anybody, he said. We're here to stand beside the ones who are already fighting. Heads nodded around the room. Maya looked at the paper in front of her. She'd drawn a logo, a butterfly made of hands and roots. Its wings were broad, each feather inscribed with a word: dignity, care, access, strength. This is what I want the project to be, she said, holding up the sketch. Not charity, not pity, but ground to grow from. They began listing needs. After-school tutoring, mental health counseling, job prep workshops for teens, affordable groceries for single parents. Marcus listened more than he spoke, taking notes, asking questions. Maya wouldn't have known to ask like what building codes might get in the way, or how to secure city permits without red tape choking the process. Outside the window, the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the churchyard. This isn't going to be easy, Reverend Porter said, but nothing worth planting ever is. In the weeks that followed, the Second Chance Project gained traction. Maya became its youngest co-founder. She helped design flyers, met with school counselors, even spoke on a local radio show about the mission. Her voice shook at first, but by the third question, she found her rhythm. It started with a breath, she told the host. Someone couldn't breathe, and I gave what I had, $1, a moment. That's all it took to begin something bigger than me. The host paused. And now? Now, Maya said. We're building a place where kids don't have to give everything just to be seen. The story went viral again. Not the way it had when she saved Marcus. This time it was quieter, shared among teachers, nurses, social workers. People wrote letters. A retired architect offered to design the center for free. A food supplier donated non-perishables. A local librarian offered to build a satellite reading room on site. And Maya kept drawing. She designed murals for the future walls, scenes of resilience, of children reaching out to stars and planting roots that curled like hope into the concrete. One day, she and Marcus visited an empty storefront near the park. The space was rough, with cracked tiles and flickering lights, but it had tall windows and strong bones. This could be it, he said. Maya stepped inside slowly, eyes tracing the empty shelves, the dust floating in golden slants of light. She imagined desks, beanbag chairs, shelves of books, a butterfly mural wrapping the far wall. She turned to Marcus. Let's do it. But not everything was easy. A week after signing the lease, protesters showed up. Just 5 of them, loud and smug, claiming the project was a cover, a publicity stunt, that Maya was being used. Marcus kept his cool. Maya, however, felt the sting. "Why do they think we're lying?" she asked that night, curled on the couch with Grandma. Grandma stirred her tea. "Because truth makes some people nervous, makes them face what they ignored." "But I'm just a girl." "And you're telling the truth," Grandma said. "That makes you powerful." The next day, Maya made a new sketch. This butterfly had broken wings, but it still flew higher, fiercer. She called it resilience. She posted it online with a caption, "We're still here, still building. Come visit and see for yourself." And people did. Volunteers poured in. Donations climbed. Kids brought crayons and helped paint baseboards. A local band played a fundraiser on the sidewalk outside. Bit by bit, the space transformed. When the front sign went up, the Second Chance Project in bold blue letters, Maya stood beside Marcus and smiled so wide her cheeks hurt. She reached into her pocket and took out her oldest sketch, the very first butterfly she'd drawn after meeting Marcus. "I want this to hang in the entry," she said. He nodded. Perfect. The opening day was set for summer. The night before, Maya stood in the center of the room, now filled with books, art, sunlight, and laughter echoing from earlier preparations. She ran her fingers along the shelves, the smooth edges of desks, the paint still smelling faintly fresh. "This used to be an empty place," she said softly to herself. "Now it's full of second chances." Marcus entered behind her, setting down a small framed photo on one of the side tables. It was of them on the courthouse steps, just after the verdict. Maya laughed. "Where'd you get that?" "A friend snapped it. Said I looked like a man reborn." "You kind of were," she teased. They stood in silence for a long moment. Then Marcus spoke, voice quieter. "I used to think success was about rising above. Now I know it's about reaching back." Maya turned to him. "Thank you for reaching back for me." He shook his head. "You reached first." Outside, the wind stirred, warm with the promise of summer. And in the glow of twilight, 2 people, one young, one seasoned, stood inside a dream they'd built from breath, paper, and faith. The door opened. Tomorrow, it would welcome many more. The sun rose bright and proud on the day the Second Chance Project officially opened its doors. It was a Saturday, but the sidewalks buzzed with the energy of a holiday. Folding chairs lined the street, and volunteers tied pastel-colored balloons to the handrails. Children ran back and forth in front of the entrance, their laughter cutting through the morning calm like music. Maya stood just inside the building, hands folded nervously in front of her. She wore her favorite jean jacket, the butterfly pin fastened just above her heart. The mural she had painted with other neighborhood kids, an explosion of butterflies bursting from a cracked concrete wall stretched across the main entrance. The words underneath read, "Where broken things bloom." Marcus walked up behind her, holding 2 cups of cocoa. He handed her one without a word, then turned to take in the scene. "I was afraid no one would come," Maya whispered. He nodded at the growing line of people outside. "Looks like the neighborhood had other plans." The ribbon cutting was simple. Miss Lillian gave a short speech about community. Reverend Porter led a prayer for dignity and grace, and then they handed the scissors to Maya. She hesitated, her fingers trembling. "I'm not used to people watching me," she said. "They've been watching," Marcus said softly. "They've just never had a reason to believe. Until now." With a deep breath, Maya sliced the ribbon. The crowd burst into applause, and the doors opened wide. The center filled quickly. In the main room, art tables were set with sketch pads and colored pencils. In the back, shelves brimmed with books, some donated, some bought with grant money. A reading nook was tucked into a corner with beanbags and soft lighting. The kitchen buzzed with volunteers preparing simple meals for families in need. And along the hallway, rooms had been converted into small counseling offices, tutoring stations, and quiet spaces for reflection. It was everything they'd dreamed and more. Maya gave tours to parents, answering questions about enrollment and programs. She showed a curious group of kids the art room and handed out blank journals. "You can draw or write anything you want," she told them. "This is your space." In the afternoon, a man in a dark suit arrived. He wore a city badge and carried a leather-bound notebook. Marcus met him at the door. "I hear good things," the man said, nodding toward the building. "Your permit came through without issue. The council appreciates what you're doing." Marcus shook his hand. "Appreciation is good. Action's better." The man laughed. "Well, we're watching." Maya watched them talk from across the room. She wasn't sure she liked being watched by officials, but she trusted Marcus. And for now, that was enough. As the day wore on, waves of people came and went. Some stopped to hug Maya. Some left handwritten notes on the Hope wall, near the exit messages of thanks, dreams, even drawings from small hands. By evening, the center had quieted. A few volunteers swept floors and packed away supplies. Marcus stood by the window, watching the last of the sun melt into the buildings across the street. Maya sat at a table near the mural, sketchbook open. "You okay?" he asked. She looked up. "Just tired." "It's a good tired." "Yeah." She turned her notebook toward him. A new butterfly stared back, its wings made of tiny overlapping hands, like 100 people reaching toward something bigger than themselves. "I think this one's called Together," she said. Marcus studied it carefully. Fitting. Grandma arrived just before they closed. She wore her Sunday dress, even though it was Saturday, and carried a container of lemon bars she had insisted on baking despite the heat. "You made this happen," she told Maya, placing the container down. "You could have stayed quiet, but you chose to be louder than fear." Maya smiled, eyes brimming. "I had help. You listened to the call," Grandma said. "That's the start of everything good." As they locked up that night, Maya stood on the steps and looked out over the street. The lights from the center glowed behind her, casting long shadows that felt more like roots than ghosts. People would return tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. Some for help, some to help others. She thought about all the pieces of her life that had felt small and broken. The nights without heat, the meals made from pantry scraps, the silence after her mother left, the weight of watching Grandma fight pain without complaint. All of it led here, to this doorway. This butterfly. She slipped her sketchbook back into her bag and took one last look at the mural, where broken things bloom. The next morning, she returned early before the first visitors, before Marcus, before the hum of activity resumed. She walked through each room slowly, touching the backs of chairs, the cool surface of tables. She paused in the reading nook and opened a random book, running her finger along the page. Then she sat in the center of the main room, alone, and opened her sketchbook. This time, she didn't draw a butterfly. She drew a door, and behind it, light. 2 weeks after the grand opening, the Second Chance project had already become a haven. Every corner of the center buzzed with life. Kids painting with abandon, teenagers practicing speeches for debate club, single mothers sipping tea in the quiet lounge while volunteers watched over their children. Maya felt like she had stepped into one of her own drawings, a place imagined, then made real through grit, patience, and relentless hope. But hope, she was learning, never went unchallenged. It started with a rumor. A whisper passed from one parent to another in the parking lot, then carried into the classrooms. Someone said a city official was reconsidering the funding extension promised to the center. The reason was vague: concerns about sustainability, possible misuse of influence, or the ever-familiar phrase, ongoing evaluation. Maya overheard it while restocking art supplies with Miss Lillian. "Did you hear?" a mother asked another near the door. "They say Marcus might be pulled into another investigation." Miss Lillian's hand froze above the construction paper pile. Maya felt her breath hitch. Later that afternoon, she found Marcus in his office, a small room tucked behind the tutoring area, where walls were covered in handwritten notes and photographs from the past month. He looked up as she entered, his eyes tired. "So it's true," Maya said softly. He didn't ask what she meant. "Another wave," he murmured. "They don't like what they can't control." She sat down across from him. "Is this because of me?" Marcus leaned forward, voice low. "This isn't about blame. This is about power. And when places like this succeed, when people who were supposed to stay invisible find their voice, some folks get nervous." Maya bit her lip. "What do we do?" "We keep going." But keeping on wasn't simple. Over the next week, inspectors arrived unannounced. They cited small issues: a cracked tile, an expired fire extinguisher, a light flickering in the hallway. Nothing dangerous, but enough to threaten a temporary shutdown. Local news ran a segment questioning whether the center was equipped to manage long-term community support. Maya watched the news in silence that evening, hands clenched. Grandma muted the television and turned to her. "Remember, baby, truth is slow, but it always wins." The next morning, Maya gathered the older kids in the mural room. She stood beside the big canvas they'd been working on for days, a swirling landscape of butterflies and bridges and stars. "They think we're weak," she said, marker in hand. "They think if they pull one thread, the whole thing will fall." One of the kids, a shy girl named Layla, raised her hand. "What can we do?" Maya smiled. "We show them. We finish what we started." That afternoon, they painted as if the walls were skin and their art was armor. They drew stories of loss and healing, of flight and freedom. One boy painted a broken chain transforming into a rainbow. Another girl drew hands holding each other above flames. When the inspectors returned, the walls were brighter than ever. Still, pressure mounted. An anonymous complaint triggered a formal audit of the center's financials. Marcus spent long nights poring over documents, receipts, and timelines, consulting with attorneys, trying to stay ahead of the storm. One evening, Maya found him sitting alone in the reading nook. He was staring at an old photo, the two of them on the courthouse steps. "Do you ever feel like it's too much?" she asked gently. He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Sometimes I think I traded one kind of fire for another. In business, I was always fighting to win. Here, I'm fighting not to lose you. Or this." She sat beside him, their shoulders touching. "You're not alone." They didn't speak after that. They didn't need to. 3 days later, a package arrived at the front desk with no return label. Inside was a stack of letters, handwritten, typed, drawn in crayon. Dozens of testimonies from families, teachers, neighbors, letters of support, of gratitude. One read, "My son hadn't spoken a full sentence in a year. He did last week after Maya told him he mattered." Another, "The center gave me a reason to keep going when I lost my job. It gave me a place to breathe." Marcus brought the letters to the next council meeting, where the fate of the center's funding was to be discussed. Maya watched from the public gallery, her butterfly pin gleaming under the fluorescent lights. When Marcus spoke, his voice was calm but firm. "You can take away grants. You can delay permits. But what we've built isn't held together by paperwork. It's built on lives changed, on second chances given and taken. If you shut us down, you're not closing a building. You're closing the door on everyone who's finally found a place where they matter." There was a long pause. Then one council member stood up and said, "I visited last week. No one knew who I was. I watched a girl comfort a boy who was too scared to speak. She said, 'This place is yours, too.' That kind of power doesn't come from a grant." They voted. The center stayed open. Outside the hall, as people hugged and cried, Marcus turned to Maya. "We're not done," he said. "I know," she replied. "But we just proved we're stronger than they think." That night, Maya drew again. This butterfly had wings like steel, yet its body glowed soft and warm. She titled it Unbreakable, and beneath it, she wrote, "They tried to silence us, but we answered with color." Summer stretched out before the Second Chance project like a promise made in light. The center had settled into rhythm, tutoring in the mornings, community gardening in the afternoons, art workshops in the early evenings. But for the first time since it opened, everyone inside felt infinite possibility rather than precarious uncertainty. On a Wednesday morning, the sky held no hint of rain. Maya and Grandma stood in the small garden planted behind the building, sunlight rippling over basil, peppers, marigolds, and sunflowers tall as little towers. Marcus knelt beside them, careful with his hands as he helped Maya tie tomato vines to wooden stakes. "Bloom well," Maya whispered softly to one of the seedlings, brushing soil from her fingernails with a shy grin. Grandma watched quietly, her eyes bright. "You did good, baby. You made something that grows." Marcus wrapped his arm gently around Grandma's shoulders. "We all did this," he said, "together." Later, inside the center, Maya led a quiet circle of kids in the mural room. They were painting new wings onto an ever-expanding mural, adding detail over months-old backgrounds. Some outlined butterflies, others adding scenes of home-broken windows repaired, hands reaching across fences, hearts rising like embers. A little boy named Elijah looked up at Maya. "You think this city will notice us now?" Maya thought, watching the wings he had painted vivid blue with orange dots. "They're starting to notice. I think they're learning to see us." When afternoon came, Marcus led an informal meeting in the reading nook. He introduced a small local board, composed of teachers, parents, and even a former school janitor who had helped lay the foundation years ago. Their task, guiding the center's direction, keeping it rooted in the neighborhood. "We're not outside help," he told the group. "We're part of the roots now. I want every decision to feel like it belongs here." Throughout the evening, the center was quiet but alive with purpose. Tired volunteers locked up. A timer ticked out final piano notes from the music room, and children trotted home with bags of fresh produce and smiles full of pride. At home, over dinner, Grandma remarked, "You've done more than I thought possible. This place, it's family now." Maya caught Marcus's eye across the table and felt something swell in her chest, not pride, but clarity. She reached over and squeezed his hand. That night, after putting Grandma to sleep and tucking away her sketchbook, Maya realized she hadn't drawn a butterfly in days. Instead, she sketched the garden tomato vines heavy with fruit, basil leaves dark and glossy, marigolds vibrant and welcoming. Underneath, she wrote, "Harvest because we sowed this together." The next morning, she packed up a box of vegetables and flowers and walked to Grandma's nurse's station. She tied it with twine and a hand-lettered note. "You helped me plant this, so it's ours." Grandma sniffled when she read it, clutching Maya's hand. That afternoon, as school let out, a small line formed outside the center. Not families needing help for once, families bringing gifts, fresh bread, handmade cards, sweet potato pie. One man, a former street musician who had fallen into addiction, offered a single $1. "You're giving folks lives, kid. Let me give you something." Maya accepted it, palms trembling, and tucked it into her pocket. A gift. When Marcus found her after closing, he said, "You're building something real." She shrugged, quiet. "You said it." But he shook his head. "No, Maya, you're doing it." As dusk settled, they stood outside under the loose vine of a wisteria that crept over the center's sign. The lanterns overhead glowed soft amber in the early dark. Volunteers drifted past with tired waves and laughter. Families wandered inside for evening programs. "Look at this," Marcus said, gesturing. "We built not just a place, but a pulse." She looked at him, emotion still quiet in her eyes. "It's alive." He nodded. Grandma emerged slowly from the building, leaning on her cane but grinning wide. "Y'all come in," she called gently. "We got lemonade and stories." They joined her at a picnic table. Volunteers placed glasses of cold lemonade before them. A group of teenagers played a quiet card game on a nearby bench. "Story time," Grandma declared. She cleared her throat. "Once when I was a girl, I dreamed of wings. Real ones, made of wind and fire." Maya seized Grandma's hand. She felt rooted and airborne all at once, grounded by the woman beside her, carried by the man who had risen from nothing, and connected to every child who dared to hope again. "Keep dreaming," Grandma said, looking at Maya. "I will," Maya whispered. Marcus added softly, "And we'll keep helping you reach." Beneath the wisteria, in the glow of friendship and promise, they sat, not saved, not rescued, but grown, together, because second chances, when planted with love, don't just take root, they bloom. The early light of summer bathed the neighborhood in soft gold as Maya pedaled her battered bike down the street toward the center. Velvet petals drooped against sun-warmed pavement, and the air smelled faintly of dewy grass and grilled corn from a vendor cart. She wore a canvas tote filled with freshly painted butterfly magnets, tiny, handcrafted symbols of everything the Second Chance Project had become. Swinging her bike into the rack, Maya paused to breathe in the hush before the day's bustle. Inside the center, voices rose like chords, children laughing in the art room, volunteers stacking notebooks in the tutoring hall, someone humming by the kitchen door. She closed her eyes and let the world settle around her like a promise kept. That morning, Marcus arrived with the first fruits of the garden, deep red tomatoes, a cluster of bright peppers, and basil leaves she could see through the dark glass. He tucked them into a wicker basket and smiled down at Maya. "Ready?" he asked. It wasn't a question about work. It was a question of belonging. She nodded. "Always." Together they carried the basket into the main room, where parents greeted them with quiet gratitude. One woman, her daughter clinging to her leg, smiled shyly and said, "We had pasta for dinner last night with the basil you grew. My girl wants to cook now." Maya felt something bloom inside her throat, like she was hearing the center breathe through others. In the afternoon, she led a butterfly magnet workshop with a group of younger kids. Paint dripped on paper towels. Colors exploded into wings. Someone said aloud, "I want mine to be rainbow." Another whispered, "Mine's silver, so it can shine at night." And as she distributed magnets, Maya realized that each child wasn't just painting, they were naming their own futures. They all looked bigger than before. Later, in the tutoring room, she found the teenager Elijah working through a math problem. His brow was furrowed, pencil hovering. She knelt beside him, gently guiding his hand. "You've got this," she encouraged. Minutes later, laughter broke as Elijah solved it correctly. He looked at her with bright eyes. "Thank you." Maya helped him stand. "That's what wings do, they lift you up." That evening, a neighborhood event took place on the center's courtyard, a modest block party that had grown into something real. A food truck parked near the mural wall. Music floated from a speaker, and lanterns swung gently in the breeze. People brought salads, desserts, board games, and folding chairs. Children darted into the garden to pick basil and strawberries. Sunlight slid through maple leaves until golden hour warmed everything. Marcus stood beside the mural, paintbrush in hand. With each stroke, he added delicate veins to a butterfly's wing from black to gold, symbolizing transformation. The mural was alive now, not just color, but story. Maya joined him there, carrying her bike's butterfly magnets to hang on the mural frame. Each magnet represented someone's name and dream. As she hung them on a painted vine, those names shimmered against the wall firm, proof that their art had become more than decoration. Grandma sat nearby, cracking nuts on her walking stick while telling stories to a circle of kids. Her strength had returned, steady and kind, and Maya watched her with awe. She used to think she was only a mother to Maya. Now she was a grandmother to the whole neighborhood. When the sun finally touched the horizon, Marcus called everyone's attention. He took the mic and spoke with warmth and simplicity. "Today marks not just a season or a building opening, it marks the first harvest of what we planted together. Tomatoes, friendships, stories, all grown here, from second chances." People cheered softly and raised cups of punch in his direction. Then he nodded at Maya. She stood at the microphone, timid and bright-eyed. "I want to say thank you," she began. Her voice trembled like morning wings but grew stronger. "Thank you for believing when I didn't believe in myself. Thank you for showing me that saving someone can bring life like wings that don't just lift you, but lift others too." The crowd erupted in applause. Tears glistened among strangers and friends alike. Maya couldn't stop the warmth rising in her chest, the glow of being seen. That night, after the last guest departed and lanterns dimmed, Maya and Marcus walked through the garden under a sky heavy with stars. Grandma slept inside, humming softly in her bed. They paused by the sunflowers, tall and golden, bowing in the night breeze. Marcus pulled out a small origami butterfly he'd folded earlier. "I made this for you," he said, offering it carefully. Maya took it. "It's perfect." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the butterfly pin he wore. He held it out. "Your wings inspired mine," he said. "Take it. Let it remind you that leaders lift others." She held it close, a sudden ache in her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you." Just keep doing what you're doing," he replied. They stood together in the moonlight, butterflies in paper and brass and paint binding them to something greater than themselves, a garden of second chances rooted in love. For a long moment, they just breathed together beneath the huge quiet sky, where a galaxy of possibilities stretched just beyond their reach. And then, with soft laughter, she slipped the pin into her jacket and together they walked inside. Because tomorrow, the center would open again and they would grow into everything it promised. Because wings aren't just about flying. They're about carrying someone home. The morning after the block party, the center felt different, lighter, yet fuller. Children arrived early and raced to the garden, hand-picked herbs tucked into pockets. Parents lingered on folding chairs, sipping coffee donated by local shops, chatting as if they'd known each other all their lives. Maya stood near the entrance, hands folded, watching the ripple of smiles spread through faces she'd grown to see as family. Marcus arrived quietly, pausing by the mural to admire new wings painted overnight, blue ones with silver streaks, some orange ones traced with hope. He smiled to himself. This was home now. Inside, the schedule was deliberate, soft-edged with purpose. The morning began with a butterfly hour, where kids met in a circle and shared one part of their story they wanted to let fly, letting go of grief, fear, or doubt. Maya sat in a chair she'd painted, listening, guiding. Some children whispered, others sobbed before offering a smile. Every story became a fluttering piece of release. Next came science and wings in the backyard, where Marcus led a simple experiment about wingspan. He had a tethered model plane, and the children worked together to tape on colorful paper wings, then let the plane glide across the pavement. When it landed, laughter filled the air. Narrow escape or perfect glide weren't part of the plan. The point was to try, fail, adjust, and try again. By afternoon, after lessons and reading time, Maya met Elijah in the art room. He was carefully painting a butterfly in shades of gold and forest green. He looked up at her. "Maya," he said, "I've been thinking about what I want to do when I graduate." Her heart skipped. "And I want to help change how they treat kids like me," he said. "I want to be a teacher or an architect to build places where people feel like they belong." Tears gathered behind her eyes. His dream felt bigger than any wings she'd painted. She squeezed his shoulder gently. "That's a beautiful dream," she said. At the end of the day, the center held a promise circle. Volunteers, kids, parents, grandma, and Marcus gathered in the rain garden under string lights. Each person spoke a promise: kindness, growth, honesty, presence. Maya held a small bell in her lap. When it was her turn, she lifted it and rang softly. "I promise to help others learn how to fly," she said clearly, "to reach for light, to keep growing even through storms, because wings belong to more than one life." When the bell's ring faded, Marcus stood and placed his hand over hers on the bell. "And I promise," he said, voice steady, "to keep helping wings grow, no matter how many storms we face together." They held hands while others clapped softly, the sound bright and sure. After the crowd dispersed, Marcus and Maya walked outside together. The garden smelled of rain and soil. Tomatoes glistened under droplets. Butterflies, real ones, danced through the basil. Maya watched one land on a flower and then rise again. "It helps," she said. "Star power?" Marcus joked. She laughed. "Number we helped. Together." He nodded. As dusk turned into soft dark, he handed her something small, a key. "It's to the center," he said. "I want you to have it." She stared at the metal, cold and hopeful. "Why?" she asked softly. "Because wings belong in hands that know how to use them," he replied. "You've earned more than pen and sketch. You've earned trust. And leadership." She swallowed. "Okay," she said. They hugged quietly beneath the chartreuse leaves. Later, inside the reading room, Grandma found Maya clutching the key. "You're holding the door now," Grandma said, voice thick with pride. Maya nodded, smiling wide. Outside the window, the night air shimmered. Somewhere, a clock ticked. Somewhere, young wings learned to unfurl, because this wasn't an ending. It was just the beginning, and the sky was theirs to paint. The morning sun filtered through the stained glass windows of the Second Chance Project's gathering hall, casting soft kaleidoscopic patterns on the tables set with fresh pastries and cold juice. All around, volunteers bustled, smoothing tablecloths, placing name tags embroidered with butterflies, whispering heartfelt corrections as they arranged the rows of folding chairs. Today was not a celebration of victory or power. It was a quiet tribute to beginning again. Maya stood near the entrance, hands folded. She felt something gentle yet fierce flame inside her chest. Dad Marcus would be arriving soon. So would many of the kids and parents who had walked these programs into life. But here, in this moment before the doors officially opened, she thought of the first time she met Marcus. No, not the polished billionaire. The skinny, frightened man gasping for breath in the alley. She remembered her own small fists clutching a $5 bill and the decision to act. She remembered wings. Across the room, Grandma sat behind a welcome desk, smiling at early arrivals. She looked 10 years younger in the soft glow of morning. As someone handed her a bouquet of sunflowers from the garden, she leaned across and whispered to Maya, You brought them home, baby. Maya nodded, blinking back tears. We did. When Marcus arrived, he carried no papers, no gowns, no speech notes. He simply stepped into the hall with her by his side. The guests broke into quiet applause, not loud, soft, like wings shaking themselves free. Maya and Marcus took their places at the front. A low hush held the room. Maya's voice trembled at first. Today isn't about what I've done, it's about what we did. She paused, scanning faces, teachers, parents, teens she'd taught, volunteers who had folded letters for the legal defense of the center, and the small boy whose smile had cracked open even the hardest hearts. This is about second chances, about wings, but not the kind I drew in my notebook. Real wings, made of community and courage. The applause this time held longer. Next, it was Marcus's turn. His voice was slower, quieter, skilled in nuance rather than gloss. I used to think saving a life meant money, influence, Visa cards, but the truth is simpler. It's about being present. It's about trust. He looked to Maya. It's about seeing people others ignore and believing they deserve more. He leaned forward. Maya saved me. Not because she was instructed to or because she expected reward. Because hope needed a pulse. That gave my life meaning again. The hush pressed back gently. From the door emerged Elijah, now in a collared shirt borrowed from his mother. He stood to join them. I want to help carry that meaning forward, he said. I'll be a second-chancer teacher, advocate, mentor for kids like me. His voice cracked, and he cleared his throat, but his eyes were steady. The audience rose in a standing ovation. Maya glanced at him with tears glistening. You'll fly, she said. Program over. The hall emptied and transformed into an art showcase. Paintings from the children formed a gallery exhibition around the room. Visitors wandered on tiptoes, breathing in the bold strokes of blue wings over cracked sidewalks, portraits of small hands holding light, murals of doors opening onto bright skies. One volunteer approached Maya. There's someone you should meet, she said, nodding toward a man waiting at the back. Maya recognized him, Mr. Harlan, principal at the high school where Elijah would start next fall. He held a thick envelope in hand and wore a careful smile. We want to partner, he said. We want to offer art electives, leadership, mentorship, and even college prep right here. When kids step into your center, they should feel a path ahead. Maya stared. Marcus placed his hand on her shoulder gently. With a nod, she stepped forward. Thank you, she whispered. Mr. Harlan extended the envelope. Inside were draft outlines, letters of commitment, and the promise to help mortgage no student's dream. Outside, children chased fireflies in the courtyard garden. Families took turns in the swing that Marcus built from old crates. Evening air dipped cool. Crickets began their chorus. Grandma handed Maya a glass of iced ginger tea. Taste it, she said. This is grown from our garden. Maya sipped, smiling. The taste was familiar, bitter and sweet. Roots and wings all in one breath. Marcus came to stand beside them. I thought we'd send off the night right, he said. What do you mean, Maya asked. He pulled out a set of 2 models, a paper airplane colored in purple and gold, and a small wooden plane he'd carved by hand, painted silver and amber. First flight, he said, then promise flight. They walked down to the garden path. Maya launched the paper plane. It soared, wobbled, then settled gently into a patch of marigolds. Marcus launched the wooden plane. It glided forward and landed with grace. Maya looked up. We're flying. He nodded. Because we built wings. They walked hand in hand back to the center's steps. A new butterfly symbol had been painted above the entrance. Its wings, 2 wide arcs of color, looked as if they could carry the whole neighborhood upward. Grandma stood there, watching them. The 2 of them. The real wings made of possibility. Maya leaned against her dad Marcus, a symbol of hope put into action. And as dusk closed in, she whispered to him, We did it. He kissed the top of her head, eyes glistening. Yes, he said quietly, you did it. Then they stood together beneath that painted butterfly, ready to take flight, all of them, together. Because wings weren't just drawings, they were promises. And tonight, under the glow of lanterns and lives touched, those wings began to carry them all home. The story of Maya and the Second Chance Project teaches us that even the smallest act of compassion can spark powerful change. From a young girl's decision to help a stranger in need, a community was reborn built on trust, love, and resilience. It reminds us that true leadership comes not from wealth or power, but from courage, kindness, and the willingness to see value in every person. In a world often divided by indifference, Maya's journey is a testament to the quiet strength of second chances and the belief that everyone deserves wings to rise.